Welcome back to another episode of Conversations at the Ranch. My name's Liam, and this week, Corinne, Samuel, and Dudley are going to sit back down to talk more about childhood development and what it looks like as a parent when you start to look at your kids in the same way that God looks at us in our relationship with Him. I know you guys are going to enjoy what you listen to here today. If you do, just a reminder, it helps us out a lot if you like this video, subscribe to the Charisma Ventures YouTube channel, hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode when it comes out, and remember to share this video with somebody who you think will enjoy it, with a lot of people who you think will enjoy it. We always appreciate you guys spreading the word about this podcast, and again, more than anything else, we hope you learned something here, and we hope you enjoy this episode of Conversations at the Ranch.
In Proverbs 3, where it is part of the instruction of a parent to children, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not into your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your path. What if we just believe that? Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, how many times have I had my little list, you know, with one of the kids, and it's like, okay, this, and this. And then I realized somewhere along the line, about time I'm getting, there's eight points and I'm getting down to 6 or 7. Mm-hmm. I'm starting to feel like, all right, I'm fixing to have joy. Why? Because I got through my list. That wasn't the point. Mm-hmm. The point was to enjoy being with that kid and walking with them in that process of discovery. And so there have been a few times when I would just be fighting with the concept. I don't know if I'm really getting this through, and I don't know if they're hearing it, and I don't know if it's going to make a difference and whatever. And just realize I'm all bound up in myself here, and just to stop and look in their eyes and go, you know what, you're really cute. Mm-hmm. I'm enjoying these moments here.
Yeah.
And many times, not every time, but many times in the aftermath of that, God would give me a wisdom to know what word or what thing to do for that particular situation.
Right.
I believe God is more interested in our success in this matter than we think He is. And so what if we just says, okay, God, I got the big picture here, and that I'm your instrument of parenting, and they're your kids, mm-hmm. and I just want to do a good job. And so, would you just kind of show me how to love them right, and how to enjoy them best, and then believe that God He'll give you answers. Mm-hmm. I mean, what do you do when the police call and go, "We got your son in jail"?
Yeah,
you know, we picked him up on the street. There ain't no formula for that, excuse the grammar. Mm-hmm. And it sure is good to have a calm heart to say, okay, Lord, it's your child, but it's my stewardship, and I don't know what to do here. Mm-hmm. Will you tell me what to do? If any man lack wisdom, let him ask from God, who gives to all men generally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. But let him ask in faith, not doubting, for he who doubts is like the wind that's tossed to and fro. I mean, what if we just believe the gospel?
What if? Yeah.
I mean, I hope you don't hear me saying all those details are not important. They are important. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying sometimes we get lost in the minutia of it that we forget, hey, this is God's deal. And I'm here on assignment, so if He doesn't give me what I need to get my assignment done, that's His problem, not mine.
Yeah. You going to say something?
Oh, you mentioned joy, and most recently, I don't get a whole lot of satisfaction or joy when I complete a list. I just think there's always more going to be added to it. So I don't think there's an end to the list.
That's true.
So my recent joy with one of my children is my oldest. And it wasn't because he completed a list. It was because he showed growth. And it was in internal of himself to think through something, and that is empathy. You can't teach somebody empathy. You can model it, but you can't make someone feel it. And that is by seeing how someone else feels, And it was an accident. So it wasn't that he needed to own, that he did something that hurt them. It was an accident. But to pause and still say, even though it was an accident, I see it impacted the other person. And so I waited with him and I said, I know you're...
What did he do?
Oh, I think he was playing and he bumped into a little girl and fell on top of her and she was crying.
Yeah.
And he was stunned because he didn't mean to do that. He didn't, and I stayed with him and I said, well, I think maybe we need to wait. And what do you think? And see how she's doing, or what do you think we can do next? And he said, yeah, she looks sad. And I was like, what do you think we should do next? And do you want to talk to her? He's like, no, I think she might be mad. And I said, is there another way you can communicate that you care how she's doing? He's like, all right. So he wrote something to leave it. We were at a plane for other people that we don't know, and he did want to leave a note, and he said, I see how my action caused you to get hurt. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. He said, I will be looking where I am next time. And so we have definitely walked him through that many times prior about addressing, how to, we don't say sorry. We want, what would be the right words to communicate that you feel? And then what can you do for the future? Like what changes on your own can you make? And he did. But him writing out on his own, I didn't dictate to him what to write.
Yeah, that's good.
And so to me, it's like, that's what we're celebrating is growth.
Yeah.
And then we celebrate afterwards. And it's not you get a reward, now you get an ice cream. it's just that it's that acknowledgement, like, hey, I see the growth and I hope you see it too in you. And this type of situation is likely to happen again.
Yeah.
And now you did this on your own on what you do next.
Yeah.
So that is wisdom on knowing what is the next steps.
Exactly.
And satisfaction and like, okay, I'm growing. There may be a added challenge to the next time.
Yeah.
And a more uncomfortability and how to be in that, because he didn't want to exactly, like, he didn't want to talk to her, which is fine.
Yeah.
And so let's figure out something else for us to for us to communicate. And I think one of my biggest goals and desire is rupture and then repair. How do we do that? Because Jesus came to repair, and he taught his disciples how to repair, and that is what I desire my children to leave away with, because that will never end in life.
Right.
There will always be ruptures happening, especially in relationships. How do you repair?
Yeah. We all want our kids to understand mercy, but you only understand mercy in the middle of a mess. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So if there's no rupture, you don't ever get the joy of grace repairing it. Mm. And so, it's just part of the dialectic or the tension that we face. Like, I don't want my kids to hurt, and yet I want them to know what it means to be comforted by God. Mm. So
they're probably going to be in pain then.
Yeah, so they're going to be in pain. Hi, I'm Dudley Hall with Charisma Ventures. I would love to send you a weekly word from me. It lands in your box on Friday morning. What I try to do is cover what's happening in the world, regular events, but cover it from a biblical standpoint, a biblical worldview. And I would love to send it to you. So if you're interested, please sign up. We're instructed several times in Scripture, continue in the grace of God. In other words, you've experienced something. Stay with it. take that concept and put it into childhood development. So the first thing that happens in a baby's life, should happen, is what's called attachment. The mom primarily, through eye contact with the baby, there's an attachment. It's not verbal. It's just there. The mom is looking into that baby's eyes with nothing but delight. This baby is providing nothing functional in life. You know, they poop, they eat, they cry, they sleep. They're not adding to the family economy. But you just delight in them. I mean, you give your life for them. You get up in the middle of the night for them. Whatever it takes.
They drain, yeah. They drain more than they give.
Yeah, but there's that delight, and that's so important. It develops in the amygdala of the brain, and so that's what brings joy. That's the joy part of the brain. It's to be delighted in when you've done nothing to earn it. That's joy. Okay, so we create this capacity for joy with our children with that kind of unconditional delight. I think we forget sometimes that still works. You know, I've seen it more with my grandkids than I did with my kids, and I'm sorry I was so dumb. But like, you know, just intentionally focus on them so that when their eyes do come to mine, they can see my heart. They can see I'm delighting in you. You know, if one of them's at a baseball game and he strikes out, you know, I try to, pretty soon as I can, I'll just be watching him, and because he's going to look at me eventually. And when he looks at me, I don't want him to see my disappointment. I want him to know I'm delighted in him. Not in his strikeout. That doesn't matter. Delight in him. Or the other things. And I think that's something that parents could do. We'd be amazed at the difference it has in your life, because it reestablishes that attachment. It reestablishes that joy center. Okay, so back up one step. If you don't think the Lord looks at you and sees that, then you're not going to be able to do it. So it's good for husband and wife sometimes to look each other like that, instead of like, why didn't you do those dishes? I mean, you'd never do that, but I've heard of people that do that. But, or, you know, why didn't you do, instead of seeing that in your eyes, it's like, I like you.
Yeah, to me, why just automatically puts the other person on the defense.
The word why?
Just like, okay, now I got to come up with an answer that's sufficient and okay, or, you know, it's like, that's why with kids, it's like, why didn't you get your back, you know, it's just like, okay, and that's why a lot of times kids will say, I don't know, you know, because they feel a sense of like, what is that, the fight or flight?
Yeah.
And they freeze. And so it's the same thing even in marriage. Like, when you just immediately ask, like, why? Well, whatever the answer is probably not going to make you feel any better that it's not done, whatever that is.
I wish we had the wherewithal to be aware, and just to say, when somebody says, why did you do that? Just say, because I'm a selfish bastard. Why? You know, that'll shut things down. Because you're right. I mean, the why question is just an accusation.
Are you sure?
Well, most of the time.
It's definitely not curious.
Yeah.
It's
Why do
definitely
you
not.
need to be curious?
I think there's a time to say.
Because you're asking why. You want to know what happened. Okay, well, maybe approach it in the curiosity of.
What would that look like?
I think really it's the other, if you can start a question outside of why, how, when, where, tell me about that, because just why just is whenever I think your own voice is hard on yourself,
Yeah.
what do you say? Well, why did I do that? Why didn't I remember blah, blah, blah? That's how you probably talk to yourself whenever you mess up and you're down on yourself, and therefore that's going to come out to your kids or your spouse, or as somebody who works for you. But there's ways to, I think, ask good questions. You can correct me. I don't know of many instances where Jesus approaches people he cares about with just instantly saying why. If many times he first presents a story, and he desires to invite people to use some critical thinking.
Yeah.
And kind of also just watch him, and they end up seeing for themselves. Or he just gently says, "Hey, this is what I'm here for," and on their own they see, "Oh, I did the opposite of what he's wanting or who he's about."
I think as you were saying that, I was thinking about Peter, his number one, apostle, and so Peter denies him, and when Jesus sees him again, he doesn't go, "What were you thinking?
Yeah, why'd you do that?
Why'd you do that?" He makes Peter think about why he did that.
Yep.
And so he says, "Hey, Peter, do you love me more than these?" So Peter now has got to go down in his heart and go, "Why did I do that? Where am I, the hypocrite here?" So
the curiosity.
Yeah. There is a time in a conversation for the why question, if you're really wanting to know so you can fix it.
It's usually when I am after something, and I will be wanting to get answer to that. Yes.
Yeah, right.
But again, I think that's in the same way, not everything is an emergency.
Yeah.
Not everything needs to be handled like an investigation.
Right.
Especially if we're on the same team.